on Instagram necessarily because I forgot to set that live stream up, but we will figure that out later. I thank everybody who is able to log in right now. I know that some people are still getting tuned in, but we're going to go ahead and get started so that we can share information about the Field to Forest program. First, I just want to introduce myself for anyone who does not know me. My name is Veronica McClendon. I am an attorney in Macon, Georgia. I am the owner and CEO of McClendon Law and Consulting. Our firm works with farmers, landowners, and everyday people looking to build a legacy on issues concerning probate. We do estate planning. We help people who have inherited heirs property to get clear title to their land. And we also work with small business owners, particularly farmers, but any small business owner who needs help getting set up, getting their basic foundation in place, and also preparing a succession plan. Because we know that none of us are going to live forever. And so if we're going to put all of our time and energy in building a business, creating a business, we want to make sure that it's something that sustains beyond our lifetimes and that can benefit people even after we're gone or after we've retired. So that's what my firm does. And I have a guest here with me. I have Ms. Tykedra Young. She is an account manager with the American Forest Foundation. And I'm so glad to have you here, Tykedra, with me on this live stream.
I'm glad to be here. Thank you.
So I thought maybe glad to have you here. So I thought maybe we could start with you, just kind of introducing yourself and telling everybody a little bit more about yourself and what you do with the American Forest Foundation. And feel free to, share any other details about why you got into this work or what interests you about the work that you do.
Yeah, of course. So like she said, I am Tykedra Young with the American Forest Foundation. My current role is an account manager with our Field to Forest program. So I have an educational background in economics and finance, so I don't come from this space. And I was first introduced to this work in the summer of 2019 when I interned for the American Forest Foundation. And if you hear me say AFF, I'm just talking about the American Forest Foundation. So yeah, I interned with them. And in particularly, I interned with their Sustainable Forestry Land Retention Program. And this is a program that specifically works with African-American landowners. And this was my first introduction to this space. And during my internship, my role was pretty much just to work with these African-American landowners and help support them in the work that the SFLR was doing. And the work that SFLR doing is really just around helping to unlock opportunities for sustainable land use. They help families keep their land through estate planning, help with heirs property issues, help to increase economic benefit with these landowners, build generational wealth, etc. And it was just completely new to me. And I was just very intrigued, and it really unlocked a passion about addressing environmental injustices within our community. So that's kind of how I got introduced to the work. And I went back to school. It was the summer before my senior year. So I went back, finished my last year of college, and I came back to AFF to kind of finish the work that I started here. So here I am today, 3 years later, still in the work, and it's what I'm doing still with the organization. So my current role with the Field to Forest program is really just focusing around landowner engagement. One thing that I'm focused on in particular is how can we make our programs more inclusive? Not just this program, all of our programs, and also work with our DEIJ director closely, just supporting her in some of the work to just make sure that our programs are equitable and that we're able to bring opportunities to all landowners. So Field to Forest. Our Field to Forest program is actually a pilot program that we are doing in the state of Georgia. And this program is designed to assist family forest landowners to transition their row cropland or pastureland into loblolly pine forest. So our goal is to help these Georgia landowners create sustainable income opportunities for their land. So the benefits of this program is we pay for the site prep, we cover the cost of seedlings, and we also cover the cost of the planting. In addition to that, you also receive annual payments of $30 per acre. So if you have 10 acres, you'll receive $300 per year for consecutive of 30 years. You also have the option to do a thinning and a harvest. So you can do optional thinning in years 12 through 15, and then you can do a second thinning in years 27 through 30. The specific year will be based off the forest management plan, the recommendations per your forest management plan, which we also work with you, set you up with the forester who will work with you to get a forest management plan as well. And you get to keep the cost of those thinnings and also get to keep the cost of keep the profits from the harvest, and we'll also pay for a second replanting after year 30. Like I said, you get technical guidance from a local consulting forester, and you get to grow timber, store carbon, and help improve the environment for future generations. So the important part, the eligibility criteria. So there is
Takidra, if you don't mind me cutting in really quickly, I just wanted to kind of take you back a little bit to some of the things you said. For some landowners who, I just imagine, like, if I were someone who inherited some land, and I know that my granddaddy or my parents were farmers, but that's all I know about the land. Forestry might be something that is especially foreign to me, to take my farmland and move it into forest land. So I thought maybe you could talk a little bit about why that's something that someone might want to consider, and how it benefits either them or the land or the environment.
Yeah, of course. Thank you. So typically when we when I think about the average landowner who will enroll in this program, this is typically someone who, like Veronica mentioned, has recently inherited land. I'll give you an example. There was just recently, maybe last week, I worked with a landowner who was speaking about his kids. He is a cattle farmer. He wants to get out of the business. He knows he's not going to live forever. He's pretty old. And his kids are going to inherit it. They live in the city. They have no desire to farm. They have no desire to come back home and live in this town. They want to keep their lives there, but he wants to keep his land in the family. He still wants it to be profitable. He wants his grandkids to still be able to benefit from the land. And so field to forest is a viable and great option for a landowner like himself. You plant the trees, you leave them there for 30 years. We cover the cost. You don't have to have someone present on the land still farming. You can still reap the benefits of the land. You still get to keep the land in the family. Now you have a way to pay your taxes. If that was a concern for the family, you could use the annual payments to pay your taxes, not to mention the profits that you get to keep from the thinning and the harvest. And as far as the environment, just being able to contribute to a larger cause and storing carbon. And also one thing I'd like to also add with that is a lot of people think that when you enroll in this program that this is the only thing that you can do and you're restricted to just or just the forest for 30 years and that's the only thing you can do on your property. But you can still have hunting leases. You can even still graze. There are restrictions or limitations around that. Of course, you need to wait till the seedlings get to a certain age, if you will, so that you don't damage those seedlings, so that you're not hindering the growth of those. But once they reach that, and that also will be written in your forest management plan, you can still graze on your land. So it's not, you're not just restricted to maintaining this as a forest and a forest only. At the end of the day, this is still your land. And we do want to make sure that when we're working with you to create that management plan, that we are aligning with the goals that you have for your land as well, and making sure that this does make sense for you long term.
And I wanted to just kind of highlight a few of the things you said, and definitely let me know if I misstate anything. But I hear a few potential benefits for landowners. And I do want to just make the little caveat that McClendon Law Consulting does not necessarily endorse this approach or say that this is something that you should do. But I wanted to share this information about this program because I think it would be beneficial to landowners, especially those who have not been in land management all of their lives, and it's something that might be a little bit new to them. So what I heard from you, one of the benefits is that you have a steady source of income for, is it 30, like 20 to 30 years? 30 years. So you have a steady source of income for 30 years. And a lot of times people are just using their personal finances to pay taxes and insurance and other expenses. So it sounds like this is a way to have that covered.
Mhm.
And it also sounds like a way for someone who's new to land ownership to have people on their team who can guide them through the process of creating a forest management plan. Like a lot of people might not even know they
Mhm.
need one. And so
Yep.
to know that you have someone who can help you create one, I think is another one of those benefits that I heard in there, to have that support that you wouldn't
Mhm.
have otherwise if you're doing this on your own.
Yep, most definitely. Thank you for pointing that out, Veronica.
Yeah, and I also had a few other things. I'm just like listening to you, and I'm like, wow. So I see opportunities for diversification. Like people might say, why I have land is not being productive. Now I know I can grow trees on it. And you mentioned some things a lot of people don't know, that you can graze animals,
Mhm.
livestock under trees. It's beneficial for the animals because they're not in the hot sun eating
Yep.
grass all day. They get to eat grass under the cover of trees, and they also get to eat different types of plants that you might not get in a typical field.
Mhm.
So you have that opportunity to make some other money with that, and then you can harvest pine straw. I've heard of
Yep.
people growing unique and what do you call it, like gourmet mushrooms and delicacies in their forest, and
Mhm.
using it for agriculture, for recreational purposes,
Yep.
hunting leases, and then also educational purposes. I think that a lot of landowners might use their forest land for that. So basically, just to recap some of the benefits, outside of those things that are just kind of like extra benefits, y'all will pay, did you say how much money per acre? Your
$30 per acre.
pays. So you pay $30 per acre, and you also pay the cost of what else?
The site prep is covered, the cost of the seedlings are covered, and then the planting of those seedlings are covered as well.
Okay. And
And
so
then if you want to do that again at the end of year 30, we'll cover that second replanting as well.
oh wow, so you can get the next generation involved by
Mhm.
replanting at the end of that 30-year term.
Yep.
Okay. And so one question I do have with that is that these are these costs that the landowner would have to pay and get reimbursed for, or do they have to share any portion of that cost, or is this something that AFF will cover altogether?
That is a great question. That is something that we cover on the front end. So we've already worked with nurseries, consulting, foresters, all of this work to get this work covered on the front end so that we can just go out and do the work. So it's not a match, it's not a cost share, it's not a you pay reimbursement. The costs are covered initially, and then the payments come as well, about 60 days after from the date of signing the contract.
Okay. Okay. Well, it sounds like a good opportunity for
I know.
someone who wants a relatively low maintenance.
I wish I
Um,
had 40 acres.
me too, because I think it's a good way to be involved in a land without having to have a lot of expertise, and then you can
Yeah,
kind of learn as you go.
exactly. And that's what I like about it. And I also like you were saying, like somebody who's new to the space, I think this is a great opportunity. You get to work with a consulting forester. You get to get the cost covered if if that's something that you're struggling with. And then you have 30 years to kind of figure out what you want to do in the meantime, or for people who plan to plant anyway. I've met a landowner who was like, oh, I was getting ready to plant anyway. And now he's still getting to do what he wanted to do. We're just covering it. So especially if it's something that just aligns with your interest, you've been looking into planting pines. It's a really good opportunity, and emphasis on sustainable income. That's the part I like about it. If you're looking for short term, quick payments, if the basically just making sure that your interest aligns with what the program is designed to do. And yeah, so I think that's what I like the most about it, is that it does create sustainable income, because you do get the payments every year. But also just at the end of those 30 years, you get to harvest, you get to keep the profits, and then they'll pay for you to do the same thing over again.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. And I know you were about to talk about eligibility for the
Mhm.
program. So maybe you can go into some of that now.
Yeah. So eligibility is really simple. You need to be a privately owned, or you need to have privately owned land in the state of Georgia. And that's all counties. We're working throughout the entire state of Georgia. You need to have at least 40 plantable acres. And one thing that I want to say about the plantable acres is that we are working on a project, what we call bundling project. And so we're taking landowners who don't necessarily meet the 40 acres and bundling them with another landowner until we reach that 40 plantable acres. So for example, we're working with the project right now. This week we've been doing, one landowner has about a little bit over 30 acres and the other one has right about at 10 acres. And we've bundled them together. Prior to this, neither one would be eligible for the program. But because of this, we are able to couple the landowners together or bundle them together, and they both will be able to benefit and be enrolled in the program. And we do ask, if you don't have the acreage, to ask around, ask your neighbors, any adjacent property if they're interested. But even if they're not, you can't find anyone or they're just not interested, this program doesn't really align with the goals that they have for their land, we'll do the work on the back end, look through our database, see who's in your area, who's in the county. This project in particular, they don't know each other, they've never met, but we saw in the database, hey, these two landowners are 5 miles within each other. We can bundle them together, and reached out to them to get them started in the process. So I really like that, especially it makes me think about African-American landowners in particular, who are often not able to benefit from programs for several reasons, but one of them being a minimum acreage. We're just, on average, we just don't make up for most of when it comes to large acreage property. So I really like the idea of the program being inclusive in that way and bringing an opportunity to landowners who typically wouldn't be eligible for something like this. And then lastly, our last criteria is that your land has to have not been forested for at least 10 years. So it does need to be row cropland or pasture land. If it already has trees on it, then you won't be eligible for the program. And that has to do with the science behind this storing carbon and all of those things.
Okay. Well, I think you mentioned something that I thought it might be helpful to elaborate on when you talked about African American landowners and their participation in similar programs. Perhaps you can talk a little bit about other barriers that you've seen, perhaps with African American landowners, anything that you've seen that may either make this type of program less attractive, things you may have heard that people say, either am not interested or I don't think I can do it, or even some things that you have seen come up when you're working primarily with African American landowners that are barriers to them participating in these kinds of programs.
Yeah, so for the most part, and this is actually something I've already researched, but for the most part, the landowners it's either an heirs property issue, landowners are not having the minimum acreage, or their land has been forested for the past years. And I do air quotes on forested because it's not necessarily that they had a forest and it's not a forest that they're benefiting from, but they don't either have the resources, financial resources, or technical assistance that they need. And so they have natural regeneration on their property, and is now considered a forest because it's been unmanaged for so long, because they don't have the tools and resources or means to manage their land. And so now they're not eligible for this program because they don't qualify because of that forested criteria that we have.
Okay, so you have some people who they haven't grown trees intentionally on their land. They haven't planted anything, but the trees just came up, and so it kind of by default ends up being ineligible because it's not clear land. Okay. And you mentioned heirs property, and it's for those who know me and who's familiar with my firm, there they know that that's something that I work with a lot, is helping people who have inherited land to get clear title to their land. And just for everybody watching, if there's anyone who doesn't know what heirs property is, it's property that you've inherited, and now from one generation to the next, or perhaps there's been multiple generations involved, you have several family members now owning the same piece of land. And a lot of families have managed their land in this way for many years, but now when there's programs available to be able to benefit from these programs, usually you have to have clear title. And when it's heirs property, the title is not usually clear because there's just been multiple generations that have inherited land without either going to court or filing anything in the courthouse record. So it is important that if you want to be eligible for programs like what American Forest Foundation offers, or even some federal programs, that you start working on your heirs property, because you don't want to wait until you have a great opportunity in front of you, and then you have to figure out, how can I get in touch with my cousins and my aunts and uncles and my whoever to try to get a handle on this so we can be eligible for this program. So heirs property, I can imagine, would be a significant barrier. And I know that that's something that you all have been trying to figure out some solutions to address as well. Although it might not be the best fit for this program right now.
Yeah, it's definitely something that our organization is looking into. Again, we are currently just working on ways to make sure that not just this program, but all of our programs are inclusive. When you look at the data, you can see who the average landowner is in the state. And these are this is the demographic that these programs typically serve. And so it's no secret, we're just working on how can we change that? What can we do? I know trust is part of that as well. Just building trust within the community. So, and things like that take time. So yeah, it's definitely something we've thought about and are looking into partnering with different organizations and businesses like yourself, just to figure out how can we break down some of these barriers.
Yeah, so you have those actual legal barriers, and then, like you said, the trust barrier, where a lot of people have had their land stolen. I've worked with a few families now where they know that their family owned hundreds of acres. You can see the deeds where their grandfather or great grandfather owned hundreds of acres, and then now they have 5 acres or 10 acres.
Wow.
And it's not really clear what happened. There's always family stories about, what may have happened, what may not have happened, but something happened to where this land was lost. And sometimes it did happen where someone thought they were just selling timber, but they ended up selling their whole property. Or they thought that they were just selling rights to a particular resource, and somehow the fine print, they ended up selling the whole property. I also have heard of stories of people being approached by timber companies saying, hey, I want to buy your timber. And they offer them an amount that's a third or a fourth of what they could have gotten if they found someone on the open market. So trust is definitely an issue that comes into play. So I will say with that, I know some people probably wondering, well, why is American Forest Foundation being so kind? Like, why are they doing this? What do they get out of this? So I don't know if you're able to speak on how this program benefits AFF to any extent, or if that's something you have to defer to somebody else.
Yeah, it's really just simple. AFF is a nonprofit organization, so we don't benefit, at least financially, and as it relates to this work. We just have a due diligence and commitment to advocating and supporting landowners and providing financial assistance and technical assistance and just improving the environment, doing good for the environment. So we, like I said, we don't really get any financial, or it's not we don't at all get any financial incentives or financial benefits. Thankfully, other organizations and people recognize the work that we're doing and are able to support us in our work that we do, so that we are able to have programs like this.
Okay. Okay. And I appreciate you so much for sharing about this. I have one more question for you, or maybe two questions for you,
Okay.
but I did also want to say that if anybody had any questions, you can put them in the chat. After we're done with the live stream, if there's anybody in the Zoom, then we're happy to have a little bit more of a direct question and answer if we need to. But definitely want to give people an opportunity to put questions or comments in the chat if you have them, and we can address those after we hear from Takidra on a couple other things. So the other thing I wanted to ask you about was just the timeline, like in terms of is there an application deadline? And then the question would be the application process.
Yes. So as far as application deadline, we do have an enrollment period of June 1st through September 30th. So as you know, we are swiftly approaching the end of the month. Today is the 14th. So we do have about 2 more weeks before we close our enrollment period. I or someone else from my team would love to sit down and talk with you if this is something you're interested in, but maybe feel like you may need more time to think about it or consult with other family and feel like it may be beyond that 2 weeks. We can at least sit down and have a conversation to see if it's something that we could maybe do or maybe work out. But yeah, we that is the deadline for the end of our enrollment period. As far as application process, we really don't have a it's not like a form or anything you need to fill out. Basically, you would reach out to someone, either myself or my colleague May, and you can reach out via phone, email, and just let us know you're interested. We'll ask a few questions on the phone, just basic information, and connect you with our on-the-ground coordinator, Scott, who is actually in Georgia, who can kind of talk more through the technical things as it relates to the program and your property in particular, kind of pull up your property on the map and y'all look at it together and just talk through that and determine eligibility then, and then we'll proceed with next steps depending on whether or not you are eligible.
Okay. And so do you know much about the actual process? So once someone says that they want to do the program, they're found to be eligible, do you know what things are done? Like, are there any contracts or deeds or things like that?
Yes. So once we determine that someone is eligible, we will do someone will go out and do a site visit, or not someone, Scott and our forester, Chad or someone from his team will come out to your property. They will do a site visit, take photos, etc. You can be present or not, depends. They'll work with you depending on your preference. And we will build an offer letter based off of that. This will tell you how much you receive annually and what your total payment is for the duration of the 30 years. You get 60 days to look over your offer letter. Some people like to sit down and talk with their families, send it to their attorney or whatever, maybe just hold it for a few days to think about it. And once you confirm that you do want to move forward with the process, we'll then we'll request your deed information, your records, and once your title comes back clean, you have a clean title on your land, we will send you a contract. You'll have 60 days to sign your contract. You sign the contract, we'll move forward with site prep, which will happen in the month of October, and then your planting will happen in January.
Okay. Do you know about how long it takes to plant?
That I think would depend on the size of the property.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for kind of overviewing that for us. I guess in closing, what I would ask is there anything that you can think of that if a landowner, like let's say that they're listening to this after the program deadline has already expired, do you have any tips for them for how they might consider Hold on one second, please.
No problem.
Four-year-olds don't care if you are on Zoom or what. She's like, I'm going to make sure you hear me. So yes, I guess I was just wondering, like, if someone's watching this after it's too late for this program, but perhaps there might be something in the future. Do you know some things they might want to do now so that they can be ready for the next application period?
Yeah, so one thing that I would advise is to be sure about the title of your property. And that's just with any program. Like Veronica mentioned earlier, it's not really best practice to wait until you're ready to enroll in a program to kind of get all these things situated. That's just something that you want to have so that when the opportunity does come, you are ready and you're not missing out on programs like this or any other great program out there that aligns with the goals that you have for your land. So I would definitely say making sure you have clear title on your land. As far as this program specifically, I don't really feel like there's anything that you should have beforehand. Really, I guess just also know what it is that you want to do with your land and make sure you're certain about it. I mean, it is a 30-year contract. Like I said, you can do other things on your property, but if you find that this just may not be something that you think you are interested in, you don't want to force on your property for 30 years. Maybe this isn't the best program for you. And I did mention that it is a 30-year contract, and some people think that you're stuck. And well, I don't want to say you're stuck, but it does operate like your average contract. You do have the option to breach your contract or get out of your contract. Of course, there are penalties associated with that, but the option is there. You will have to pay back your payments, and also the cost of the planting, the seedling, and site prep. So you do want to keep that in mind if it is something that you're thinking about. It is one of the questions that landowners ask when it comes to enrolling in the program is the nature of the contract. Like, what if I decide that I don't want to do it? So the option is there, but just like with any other contract, there are penalties for violating your contract.
It's a good point to make for folks who are considering this. So as Takidra said, there are pros and cons to everything. Whatever you decide to do often will keep you from being able to do something else. And so you really have to think through, it's just the type of thing that you want to bind your land up with. So let me see, I'm going to look to see if we have any questions in our chat or if we have any questions that have come through on Facebook. I don't think we do, but just in case.
And if not, I can just go through some of our most common questions that I've received from landowners. Just for if there's questions that maybe you just haven't thought of, but I can kind of just go through some of the things that the average landowner or questions that I receive on average on a weekly basis from interested landowners.
That would be good. That'd be good.
So one question would be about, people are always curious about, do they have to enroll all of their land in the program? And the answer is no, you do not have to enroll all of your land. Like I said, there is a minimum acreage of 40, and then we also have that bundling opportunity for landowners as well, but you do not have to enroll all of your land in the program. People are often curious about limitations and activities that they can do on their land. I don't know if there were some people who may not have heard earlier, but at the end of the day, you own your land. So outside of those project acres, you can do whatever you want. But within those project acres, the ones that are enrolled in the Field to Forest program, they must remain in trees for the duration of those 30 years. That being said, the project acres can be thinned per your management plan recommendations, of course. They can be harvested as well per your recommendation plans. And a forester, we will have a forester or consultant forester who will work with you on that forest management plan that I'm speaking about, to make sure that you are meeting your objectives and also the mission of our pilot as well. So like I said, we do want to make sure that we're aligning both the goals that we have with our Field to Forest program with the goals that you have for your land to the best of our ability. Of course, some things are just not going to be achievable. You can do recreational activities, grazing is allowed on that property, hunting leaves, etc. The main thing is, as long as those trees are growing and you are not compromising the growth of those trees and whatever it is activity that you do decide to do on your land. People are often curious about the type of tree, and it is loblolly pine. I know I've had some people who are curious about longleaf or any other species, and this is a pilot program. For this pilot, we are planting loblolly, but we are looking at other species, longleaf being one of those species. I'm trying to, a recent question that I got that I thought was very interesting was, what if a natural disaster happens, or if this woman in particular, the government is trying to build a road through her property. And so she was worried, what if, I enroll in this program and the government does something to jeopardize or compromise my participation in the program, and it's not something that I've done. And in that case, you are protected and would not be expected to pay back your payments. It would not be considered a violation of your contract if that in fact was inevitable and wasn't a decision that you made on your own for your property. Trying to think.
It does sound like a lot of the provisions that if in most contracts, like acts of God, acts of the government, things outside of your control, those are usually kind of exempted from you responsible.
Yeah. One big question, I don't know how I forgot this one, was around the contract and the nature of the contract. So the contract does run with the land. So if you do sell this land, then the individual who you have sold that land to is also expected to uphold the terms of the contract. So same with inherited, with heirs who inherit their property as well, they'll also be expected to do the same, which some people, like she said, there's disadvantages and advantages to everything. I personally see that as an advantage, because I do know, like I'm thinking about minority communities and keeping our family or keeping our land in the family. And I think about you've done, I think about being a landowner, and I've been on this land for years and years or decades and decades. I've put so much into this land, and now I'm getting ready to, or my heirs are going to inherit this land when I'm gone. And I think about being worried, like, what are they going to do? They don't want to farm. They don't want to do this. They don't want to take care of that. But if I put this land in this contract, then they don't have to worry about that. They have to uphold the same terms of this contract that I did. And maybe it gives them opportunity to see the true benefit and value of the land, and all the opportunities and just value. I mean, like I said, I really wish I had 40 acres, or some acres. But yeah, I do see that as an advantage. I like the idea, especially with the younger generation who's not necessarily particularly interested in forestry or just the conservation space and being on the farm at all. They want to travel, they live in the city, and you don't have to worry about that. You put this program, or you put the land in this program or any other program. I think it's just a good idea to already have that. The point that I'm making, I think, is a good idea to already have that figured out. I think it increases the chances of them keeping it in the family if that's not something they have to figure out. What do I do with this land? What needs to happen? Who's going to pay the taxes? If that's something that's already figured out, I think that it's more likely that you will be able to keep your land in the family. So I do like that about the program.
Yeah, I had a colleague who said it's kind of like if you had a car dealership and you it had a successful car dealership or grocery store or something like that, and right before you passed it to your kids, you sold everything, you fired everybody who worked there, and then you say, okay, here you go, you got a new car dealership or a new grocery store, but now they got to start from scratch. Or, they might not have been in that business, they don't know what to do. But if you already have things set up for them, then unless they're already inclined to be involved in that sector, you kind of are saying, I'm giving you basically a paycheck that has its own plan and strategy with it. So I think that,
Good analogy. That's a good analogy. I like that.
yeah, I've been using it. I hope he doesn't mind, but I thought it was a good analogy. It's like, let's come up with a plan for them so that when they get it, they actually can really utilize it.
Exactly. So that it's
So
not so
yeah,
vulnerable. And someone can come
right,
around and
right.
say, "Oh, I'll give you 50,000," and that's easy. Here you go.
Mhm. Especially when you paying out of pocket, like that's something that a lot of people are, they're like, I don't want this responsibility. But if they already got something that is covering all the expenses and they get to just go and, I mean, like you said, give me some land. It's funny because I'm sure you're probably like me, where I don't know where you come from initially, but I'm from the Atlanta area and just had no experience with farms other than when we would go visit my family. Then like my grandparents, we always would go to Louisiana. That's where we're from. And we would pass through cotton fields and things. And I later learned that Georgia has its own share of cotton fields. But as a growing up in Atlanta, I just wasn't familiar with the cotton fields of Georgia. But that was all I really knew. And I knew we had some family land back there, but I had no clue. But then after being in this work for a while, I'm like, give me some land. I'll
No,
put some
really.
trees. We'll have some animals
Right.
grazing up
A
there,
little
and I'll be
cabin in the
harvesting
back.
hay. Yeah,
I
because you
I
start seeing
agree.
all the possibilities.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely. And I think that's the issue, particularly. Like one of the problems in our community, like we just don't know. I have a similar story. Like I grew up in the city. I grew up in Birmingham all my life, and people think because you live in Alabama or Georgia or Mississippi, wherever, that you live in the country or you have land or you have animals, you have a farm. And I never saw, I didn't have any family with land. I never was out in the country. I never, that was never my childhood. A backyard, that's what I had. That was my outside. And I didn't really value that. We had cousins who stayed out in the country, and I hated going to their birthday parties. I'm like, why we gotta go they can't come to Birmingham. Like, why do we have to go all the way out here with nothing out here? Those cows, they stink. Like, I don't want to go out there. And now I'm like, man, little did I know. I thought people who farm because they were poor. I didn't see the value in that when I was younger. I thought you did it because in my mind, who would do it for fun? There can be no other reason somebody's doing that unless they're being forced to. I just really didn't see the value in it. And now that's like my ultimate goal. I have no desire to live in the city the rest of my life. I'm like, I want to get land. I want to be out there. But just working in this space taught me that. I doubt if I ever probably would have figured it out. There's nobody talking about it. It's just it's not common knowledge.
mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'm hoping that more and more younger people will see the value in this space. And I think it is happening because people are tired of, like, talking to you about social media and how exhausting it can be, and just the cares of life today. I feel like it's harder, and I can't really compare to how it was for my parents or anything, but to me, to have social media, to have cell phones, to have text messaging, and all of the things that we have constantly, emails. Like my mom worked for a corporation, so she had email, but it never went home with her. It was just this thing. And so now, where we're constantly bombarded with information and messages, you need somewhere. You need some woods to go and walk, and to be able to walk in your own land and go sit in your own woods and not have to be scared of what's happening in the woods, because you own it and you what they call it, cruise it, and you know what's going on there, and you know that you put a fence around it, and so people not able to just come on and use it. So it's really opened my eyes, and I'm hoping that other people who are, I guess I would say, younger, would be open to considering it. So I'm glad you're out there fighting a good fight and spreading this kind of information.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, I figure what we could do, we'll see. I don't know how much time you have, but at least for the sake of this live stream, you could give out your contact
Mhm.
information and just how people can reach you if they want to get started, if they want more information. And then we can end the live stream in just whatever time we have if we had any questions from the Zoom room.
Okay, no problem. So you can reach me at my cell phone 202-585-1611. Again, 202-585-1611. And email is tyoung, letter T, YOUNG at forestfoundation.org.
Okay. And it's the website for American Forest Foundation, forestfoundation.org.
It is, yes.
Okay.
And you can learn, and actually you asked me this question earlier and I just realized that I never got to answer it. But you asked about other opportunities, and there are other programs within our organization as well that you could learn about. They're not my expertise, so I couldn't go into detail on all of those programs, but there's information available on the website. And even if you just wanted to reach out to me, I could put you in contact with the individual who would be able to help you and get you the information that you need to kind of talk with you through those programs. Some of them are not in the state of Georgia, but you can kind of peruse the site and see what it is that interests you. And even with the programs, they are expanding to the Southeast. So even if it's something you just want to kind of already have on your radar, as we are planning to expand to the Southeast, so that when we do get to your state, you're already locked and loaded. You are versed in the program, you know if it's something you want to do, you kind of study it, had time to talk with your family, etc. So I would encourage you to also look into the other programs that we have, that we offer at the American Forest Foundation. And even with the Field to Forest, you do have the opportunity to talk with, I mentioned Scott Griffin earlier. I think he's a very powerful resource. He's just very knowledgeable. And so even if you're not eligible, I've even seen him he's been able to help landowners, just kind of give them guidance on other things that may be a better fit for them and their land. So I would still encourage you to reach out if this is something that don't be discouraged if you feel like you're not eligible and not reach out. I think there's still something for you to benefit from here, even if you feel like you may not be eligible, whether that be the opportunity to bundle with another landowner or just some forestry guidance from Scott himself. So yeah, don't be discouraged by the eligibility criteria.
Yeah, I think even just knowing that programs like this are out there can be helpful for landowners, because they just might think, I have this land and I don't know what to do with it. I'm tired of it. I'm thinking about selling it, but I know it's a family legacy.
Mhm.
Just to know that there are programs out there that can help you replant or help you plant. This is not even a replanting situation, but this is a planting without previous trees on the property.
Yeah.
To know that that's out there, and that expertise is out there, I think is helpful for landowners as well. So, well, I would say with that, what I'll do is I'll go ahead and stop this live stream. And I thank you so much for your time on here. And what we'll do, we'll just for the last few minutes, if people have questions, that we can talk through those on the Zoom. But thank you so much, Takidra. And if y'all are
Thank you.
interested in this program, y'all make sure that y'all reach out to her, check out the forestfoundation.org website, and just get the information that you need. So I'm gonna stop the stream now.